Nighty nighty. Ah, spaghetti. Ah, ravioli. Ah, mamma mia.
Alright, welcome Yang Gang to Securing the Bag with Seth Underwood. I am your host, Seth Underwood. And have you spent 10 minutes surrounded in green lately? Because I'm not too sure, judging from the chat here, that we have. Listen though, real quick, thank you for joining. We have a lot to talk about, very little time to do so, very little time indeed, because the technological singularity is at hand and the machine elves wait for no one. But we all know what's even closer than the tech singularity. It's the 2019 Democratic debates happening here in July. We are now 19 days away from the breakout moment. Take two. Will there be more seances involved? Will there be more mic cutting? Will there be more shenanigans? We will have to wait to find out. Special thanks to everyone in my chat, including my dear friend William, scaring away all my concurrent viewers. I actually don't know if this number is correct or not, but I do spend an exorbitant amount of time actually looking at it. Makina, thank you for joining here in the chat. John Gannaday, you as well. Always good to see you too. And I think Michael may have been here and then left. Yang Gang, we got to come up with a name for the viewers of the Dividend Report. I'm not sure exactly what it should be, but like I feel a special connection happening between the two of us. You know, we're now on what? Episode 21. I forgot. I had so much planned for episode 20. We were going to have this huge celebration, this huge just kumbaya circle of love and a cornucopia of gratitude surrounded in green. We were going to do an outside version of Securing the Bag. And then I completely forgot about it. There was so much happening, or not very much happening at all. So what are we going to be doing going forward here? I am definitely reformatting the stream, trying to find better alternatives. We will have a much shorter stream tonight. I say that every time, then it winds up being a completely normal stream, but we'll just have to wait and see here. Quick business for the stream. I like to give a special thanks to my new subscribers. I think we're up to about 340 or so now. Every single day it is going up. So thank you so much. My goal is to hit $1,000. That's $1,000 for 1,000 subscribers. I think I got that mixed up, but you know what I'm trying to say. 1,000 subscribers. Make sure that you are sharing my live stream with anyone you think might be interested with UBI and Yang in general. Like I said, there's not too much to talk about today. I think we're going to be covering very briefly just kind of the basics. There's some tweets that Yang made today that I wanted to highlight. Coming straight out of the mouth of the man himself. He has a very amazing interview that he did on Freakonomics, but he just went ahead and took this short phrase from it with a really nice flashy infographic. Of course, I can't show it here on the stream because my tech issues are severe. I have worked tremendously to try to get this to work. I think I don't know. I need to try streaming on my laptop or something. Who knows? But real quick, I want to just take a quick listen into what he said. This is like 10 seconds long. A minute and 10 seconds. Let's take a listen here.
If a revolution happens, how does it start and what's it look like?
So, to me, the rubber hits the road with the truck drivers. I mean, there are 3.5 million truck drivers in this country.
It's always messing
are
up.
Unionized. And so the odds of there being a collective negotiation very low. 87% of them are part of small firms of, let's call it, 20 to 30 truckers. And 10% of them own their own trucks. So think about that. If you borrow tens of thousands of dollars to be your own boss and be an entrepreneur, and then your truck cannot compete against a robot truck that never stops. The odds then of these truckers showing up at a state capitol, let's get 30 guys together with our trucks and our guns and protest the automation of their jobs. I don't know thousands of truck drivers, but I do know some, and they do not strike me as the sort who will just shrug and say, okay, I guess that was a good run. I'm going to go home now and figure out what job is there for someone who's a 50-year-old former truck driver.
So those numbers are pretty startling, and for many people, truck driving is the thing that gets you kind of on edge about thinking about these problems. And I've also brought up call center work as well, because there's two things about these two different branches. Is that once manufacturing really went away, the remaining jobs that kind of took the space of manufacturing were call center workers and truck driving workers. Truck driving mostly for the older people who had been in manufacturing, but like call center work is kind of the manufacturing of today. It's better paying than your fast food and retail work. It's kind of where you get your foot in the door. if you're just out of college, or in college. So we're really getting a pincer attack on two of the most extreme things. Like the cushion that people did have after manufacturing is now being attacked in a significant manner. And there was just some news today that this is part of the reason why I wanted to bring this up today. Waymo has hit 10 billion miles in simulated traffic driving. Now, okay, real quick, Waymo is, in case anyone doesn't know, Google's subsidiary company. It's its self-driving branch. Waymo is using, I think, in collaboration with Chrysler Cruise, I believe. I don't know. It's really interesting what's happening here. You're seeing all of the top dogs in the car manufacturing industry, GM, Toyota, Volvo. They're all pairing together. It's a coordinated effort. It's a little strange. I mean, we're edging closer towards plutocracy in some ways, if you ask me. They recognize that there's disruption on the way. These scrappy young startups, Tesla, Nutonomy, a lot of tech companies are trying to get into the automotive space with self-driving vehicles. They can see the wave coming, and they are trying to be proactive about it. And they're linking arms together with what had been previously competitors in order to pool their endless supply of money and resources in order to beat these young disruptors. A little gross if you ask me, but hey, that's just the way the world works. Anyway, so Waymo has been really kind of kicked in gear since 2009. I think that's when they first had Waymo attached to their name. Before that, it was just Google self-driving. It was crazy. I mean, I'm talking 2005, 2006. Around this time, we had DARPA, which had these like competitions where they were inviting in the brightest minds in the country to try and see, hey, can we make cars drive themselves? And the results were pretty goofy. They weren't fantastic, but there was definitely stuff happening there. That was about 15 years ago. 2009 hits, Google's officially started their own subsidiary company, Waymo, and what they start doing is they start testing this software, right? Because it's just software. Yeah, it's running in the real world, but you can take that software and run it through virtual simulations. Think Grand Theft Auto. That's not what it is. I'm just trying to paint the picture into your mind. And it starts driving in 1 mile to 2 mile to 3 mile. But we love talking about the technological singularity and how close it is. The curvature of this graph and how fast Waymo's simulated miles are racking up is insane. I'm looking at it right here. I wish I could show it here on the stream, but we've got 2009. The curve starts from 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. In June of 2015, it hit its 1 millionth mile. Boom. Great. 2016 rolls by, June of 2016 rolls by, we get to October of 2016, we hit 2 million. So we went from 6 years to a year and a half. Now in May of 2017, we hit 3 million. November of 2017, we hit 4 million. February of 2018, 5 million. April 2018, 6 million. June, 7 million. July, 8 million of 2018. So that's a year ago. July, a year ago, we had just hit 8 million. You can expect 10 million was just right around the corner. And here we are 1 year later, and Waymo has hit their 1 billionth mile. All right. And I know we've talked about how difficult it is for the human mind to understand abstract numerical values just based on the description, the vocal description, but that is an incredible pace. And okay, listen, let's be clear here. Simulated miles and real life miles are very different. It's kind of like running on the treadmill versus running out on the pavement on hills through the woods. Very, very different experience. However, there is still a lot to be learned. And miles driven, there's a short abbreviation for this, but this metric, this simulated mile metric, is used commonly within the self-driving car startup industry in order to try and determine who the front runner is. I believe Waymo is kind of right up there at the top. Tesla, possibly, or maybe GM. It might be GM. I think Tesla's I'm rooting for Tesla. And then I think a company called Aurora. These are the 3 companies with the most simulated drives, miles per drives. This is what's really frustrating to me, is that people will sometimes send me text messages or news articles that like show Uber, Uber hit a car in Uber hit a pedestrian in Tempe, Arizona, running a self-driving algorithm. The engineer in the safety seat was like watching The Voice as they were driving. Absolutely terrible situation all around. One, this woman was mentally ill in some way. I'm not sure. She was homeless. She was walking a bike. She came out of the median. Like, it was, I probably would have hit the person if I was driving. It was that fast. You can see on the safety footage. But of course, we're putting these robots to a much higher standard than humans. But, I get that sent to me, and it's like people aren't realizing that there's not just one company that's building these self-driving cars. They are all involved in it. It's a race to the top. There's competition, there's innovation, and just that general exponential curve that we love talking about exists right there. William says, if you saw it on BBC a couple days ago, you could cover deepfake audios to scam high-level bank employees, highlights the vulnerability of the financial infrastructure with humans in the loop. I have not seen this. Thank you for mentioning it. I'm going to forget it because I am so incredibly ADD, but I'm going to go ahead and just like write that down here. Because I love hearing about deepfake technology. It's amazing. All right. My daddy drives a truck. I don't remember if he's unionized anymore. Makina, I would be interested in maybe having a conversation with him sometime. That's a very interesting perspective to have. And from what I've heard, truck drivers have quickly kind of gone from the perspective of, oh, that'll never happen, to now it's starting to become more and more concerning. Because like, as I've said, this is going to happen very fast. It's right around the corner. And what are we going to do? What is going to happen? So there was a little bit more going on here. One person, loves to just respond to all these tweets. There's always this one person who brings up the fact, he's like, my grandfather worked in this industry and his children are now doing this and this. And it's so difficult whenever you get this, because I've been through all. It's part of the problem of social media in general. You get your response out and then you get it again and you feel like you need to work on the response. There needs to be just like a short, succinct. I love giving out the Kurzgesagt. I have no idea how to pronounce it, but they did a video on automation, why it's different this time around. A great video to send to people, but people don't ever like look at videos that you supply them with. So I'm trying to think of the best way to answer that, because I often, like in one tweet, I often go down 5-6 tweets, and it's so, I have better things to do with my time. But this one person made that tweet, and I went ahead and did a little bit of looking, and there seemed to be some troubling signs heading on the future. I covered this not too long ago, I feel, but I think that there's a new economic recession indicator flashing. And it's even more troubling this time around, because unemployment is historically used as a indicator for when we may be entering into a recession in this country. And obviously there's so much discussion about, well, is the unemployment number really correct, or is it being fluffed up by administrations? But, that conversation can be had. I think, though, that this is just a really interesting thing to consider. Well, let's just say that unemployment numbers as they stand are a good indicator. Let's take a look at what this article has to say and kind of dive into the troubling aspects of what may be down the road here. A key recession tracker just hit its highest. This is from Business Insider. A key recession tracker just hit its highest level since 2009, sending a signal that an economic downturn may be looming on the horizon. The New York Federal Reserve's probability model, which predicts the probability of U.S. recession in the next 12 months, delivered a reading of 32.9% for June. That could mean tough times ahead, considering that the measure has breached the 30% threshold before every recession since 1960. It sat at precarious 28% in May. This development comes at the heels of the U.S. 10-year economic expansion recently becoming the longest on record. While duration is not what ends expansions, lengthy ones can make investors nervous. Recession Watch Recession Watch has been on high alert, especially since the yield curve between the 10-year and 3-month Treasury inverted in March and then again in May. It's happened twice now. Great. To calculate recession probability, the New York Fed's tracker uses Treasury spreads, specifically the difference between the 10-year and 3-month Treasury rates. A negative spread between the two has preceded all post-war downturns, and it's been negative since May. To be sure, many analysts argue that the New York Fed's reading is a single component of a more complex recession forecasting system. While U.S. economic data has been rocky, the latest jobs report crushed economists' expectations, English words, a sign that the economic recovery is doing just fine. So I think it's interesting that that's like the main thing people are falling back on when they hear this news. They're saying, well, no, the jobs reports are great. The jobs are great. And this is the thing. I mean, 68% of our GDP is consumer spending. It's when consumer spending tends to start downward spiraling that we really know that we're in for it, because people need money and people can only get money through jobs. Now, of course, the critical issue that we're facing with now, the way in which things are different, is that jobs and wages have been stagnant for so long and purchasing power is questionably low that at this point it really should be, are jobs enough? This is the question that I have. Here is just a really succinct article, and it's got a little bit of the millennial type, boomer type rhetoric that I think is too cliche and too overused. So we'll just have to brunt our way through this real quick. But I was really interested in what we're hearing here. This is from Huffington Post. It's okay. It's not too bad. We've all heard the statistics. More millennials live with their parents than roommates. We are delaying partner marrying and house buying and kids having for longer than any previous generation. And according to the boomers, our problems are all our own fault. We got the wrong degree. We spent money we don't have on things we don't need. We still haven't learned to code. We killed cereal and department stores and golf and napkins and lunch. Mention millennial to anyone over 40 and the word entitlement will come back at you within seconds. Our own intergenerational game of Marco Polo. This is what it feels like to be young now. Not only are we screwed, but we've been listening to lectures about how our laziness and our participation trophies from the people who screwed us. Okay, honestly, the rhetoric here is it's laying it on thick. But no, these were the statistics. Let's forget the sensational rhetoric here. We've taken on at least 300% more student debt than our parents. We're about half as likely to own a home as adults in 1975 were. 1 in 5 of us are living in poverty. Based on current trends, many of us won't be able to retire until we're 75. What's different about us as individuals compared to previous generations is minor, but what is different about the world around us is profound. Salaries have stagnated and entire sectors have cratered. At the same time, the cost of every prerequisite of a secure existence, education, healthcare, housing, has inflated into the stratosphere. From job security to the social safety net, all of the structures that insulate us from ruin are eroding. And the opportunities leading to a middle-class life, the ones that the boomers lucked into, are being lifted out of our reach. Add it all up, and there's no surprise that we're the first generation in modern history to end up poorer than our parents. So, a lot of the statistics, we get this weird dualistic view of the economy. In one way, it's doing just absolutely fantastic. Look at the jobs numbers. The unemployment rate is at record lows. This is the longest booming economy that we've had in history, and yet more and more we find that people are struggling to make ends meet. 85% of people live paycheck to paycheck. Suicides, deaths of despair are skyrocketing. How do we justify and juxtapose these two different realities that we're seeing? And obviously Andrew Yang loves to bring up the fact that GDP is a terrible, terrible indicator of overall human prosperity. We need to find a new way of measuring these types of outcomes, these types of metrics that are important to us. But it's strange that I believe, as a universal basic income advocate, that this is all beyond the point. You don't have to bring up automation as justification for a UBI. You don't have to bring up bad looking recession indicators and flashing lights in the economy to bring this up, right? This is also coming from this type of this type of belief that there needs to be some sort of justification for the universal basic income before we even get started, which means that like there could be a little bit more knowledge, there could be a little bit more information provided to people about the fact that this is overall a more efficient system that increases wealth tremendously. It's the overall problem of how it's so strange. I've always looked at insurance a little weirdly, and this might just because I'm young and naive, but it's like, hold on. I have to pay for insurance. I have to pay for health insurance because I'm going to have to use it at some point. It's not like there's no question I'm going to have to use it, but still, I don't want to use it when I know that I'm not likely to get it needing health insurance. So, but like it's not questions. It's a way of life. You don't get car insurance, you're going to get pulled over. It's believed that you have to spend money defensively. That is a tenet of our core economy. And yet when you bring up the fact that you can spend money defensively against issues such as extreme social issues, extreme social poverty, extreme this, that, there's no money. There's no money at all. This doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Why would we do that? Hold on. What? You want to take money out of my wallet in order to save me more money in the long run, more money out of my wallet for something that I don't immediately see, except when I go to the city council and complain loudly about all of the needles and all of the human feces on the street outside of my multi-million-dollar mansion. You know, it's this weird cognitive dissonance that I have a lot of trouble putting my finger on it. Like, we're obviously brainwashed in so many ways, but this is the big thing, and it's increasingly more difficult to keep up with all of these pushbacks, because part of this has to do with how amazing the Yang Gang is. You know, I've been now fully submerged into this echo float chamber of incredibly deep thinking, intelligent, empathetic, futuristic type individuals, and my entire social media feed is inundated with all of them. So I get fooled into thinking like, oh yeah, people are starting to get it, which is so weird because earlier this year I still thought UBI was this fringe idea, and yet now look at where we are, Yang Gang. Eric Swalwell is out of the race. We've made it past Eric Swalwell. So he's pretty fringe to begin with, but this is no longer fringe. It is starting to bleed into the mainstream discussion slowly but surely. It really is our duty at this point to hunker down and push this thing as far as we can. And if we push hard enough, we might just make it into the White House. Now, this is obviously the point here. I'm going to go ahead and segue into the importance that we pick up the phone. I know we're millennials, we're Zoomers. We may have the rare boomer or two in here in the stream, and maybe a couple Generation X. And thank you all so much for joining on my stream. We got to pick up the phone. We got to make some calls. We have to hit 20,000. If anyone knows, is there any kind of marker that's running on the website? I'm going to take just a quick look here because I actually haven't checked it in just a little bit. I want to see where we are in terms of overall funding and overall, how are we doing? And of course, wow, they got a lot of pop-ups on the website lately. It's been a little bit since I've been on there. And it looks like they've taken the main tracker down. A little bit of a restructuring happening on the website that I have not noticed. Still looks overall good. I like the color shades. All right. Well, I think that would be helpful if they did kind of push out, hey, we had to hit 20,000 calls and we are this close. It's a nice morale boost, I think. McKinney says, I can ask him. He loves having his brain picked about his job and about politics, so I'll text him and let Christine knows what he says. All right, awesome. Yeah, hey, ask him, does he shave his armpits? Because I've heard that truckers do that, and I always thought that it was a super weird thing. But don't tell him I think it's weird. I mean, it's totally normal. It's 2019. He can shave his armpits if he wants to. Who am I to say? Okay, so really, I did say it was going to be a shorter stream tonight. We're running up about halfway through. I'm going to close it out here. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I don't have the stomach for it. I really don't. we're going to talk a little about the news of Jeffrey Epstein. I know I kind of briefly discussed that we may be looking into it yesterday, but it's getting more and more apparent that this needs to be spoken about, especially because it got swept under the rug one time before. I feel that it is kind of my duty to, as anyone with any kind of reach online, to address this subject, to help inform anyone who isn't out there. We're gonna keep it kind of surface level. We're gonna get a little into the weeds in some areas though. So let's just, and I'm gonna link this into universal basic income as well, because the vision that I have for what kind of a society universal basic income results in, unfortunately, as with many things, it's not going to solve everything, but it can begin us on the path to hopefully get to a world where this just doesn't happen anymore. So in case you all are unaware, Jeffrey Epstein is a billionaire. Now, the weird thing is that no one seems to know where Epstein has got his money from. You know, obviously, a lot of people will first think, well, he's obviously from Wall Street, he worked in a hedge fund or something, but no one seems to know who he is. They don't know of his career history. They don't know of anything. That's the first red flag. And Jeffrey Epstein lives in Florida, or he has a mansion in Florida. He lives all over the world, obviously, being a billionaire that he is. He has recently been arrested. He touched down in New York from Paris. The FBI, I believe, cuffed him. He is charged with... Boy, let's see what is he charged with this time around. What are the wordings? Because the wording is very important. And we're going to talk about exactly what I mean right there. Epstein. I have no idea. I should have definitely brought this up first. Again, like I said, you all know that I deal with some like anxiety things. I try to moderate my intake of data and keep it not so dark. This kind of stuff sends me spiraling. It sends me spiraling into some rabbit holes and some absolute issues. So, I read the Miami Herald report and everything. Listen, so underage trafficking of minors. The disgusting thing is that the first time around it was called prostitution. They labeled these underage girls as prostitutes to give him a nice, soft, cushiony deal to get him out of a lifetime of prison. And how that happened is a bit of an interesting story. There's a individual, Acosta, that is his name, right? Acosta. Alexander Acosta was a federal prosecutor at the time who struck up this, what they call a sweetheart deal with Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers, a individual named Alan Dershowitz. I really should have all these names and everything written up in my show notes. You'll have to forgive me, but my explanation's clear. They gave this insane by all metrics, by any roll of the dice. Any single person would have said, this just doesn't add up. They had this guy dead to rights in jail. He was going to sing like a canary, in fact. There was so much information and so much backdoor dealings, and there are a lot of powerful people who are in Jeffrey Epstein's social circles that if you could just push this button a couple times, you could get a house of cards to fall down, right? And that's the thing, though, that it seems to be that might be the reason why he was let off so easy. So this individual, Alexander Acosta, was, I believe, in the Miami Police District, or no, I'm sorry, it's separate. Miami Police District was trying to attack this separately. They got a little bit sidelined by Acosta and the sweetheart deal. Let's just fast forward a couple of years to see where Acosta is right now. The Secretary of Labor is a cabinet position in the presidency of the United States. So he is officially the, I always forget these rankings here. It is... Anyone know the line of succession? How close is this guy to the presidency? You know, if Trump were to go down, if Pence were to go down, and then if the next guy were to go down, you eventually get to the next de facto presidency until someone else can be elected. So he's in this line pretty high up there as the labor Secretary of Labor. They kind of oversee issues of the workforce, issues of the workplace, employer-employee relationships, but also sex trafficking, I believe. And all right, listen, I didn't go too far down this rabbit hole here, so forgive me. I need to make sure that I have all of this up front and center. The question is, of course, what is this guy's deal, and what is his relationship to Epstein and the current presidency overall? There's a girl who has been a victim, a defendant, a witness, who has been pointing the finger at everyone and pointing the finger at Epstein, pointing the finger at other high individuals, saying this guy, he raped me, he sexually molested me, he made me go out and find other girls of my own age, and they were running this entire kind of sexual pyramid scheme where they would give money, $200. They would say, here's $200, go out and find someone your age and bring them back here. The girls, they would go out to the malls, local malls. They would find other girls who were just in need, basically. These were girls who lived in poverty, whose families were in hard times. And they would return back to this mansion. They would enter in through the kitchen door. There was a private chef who would make some food. There was this weird groomer girl who is in... This is so weird. She's in photos at Bill and Hillary Clinton's wedding. Like, real weird kind of stuff going on here. And the girls then, you know, they get food. Like, they give them money, they give them food, and then, you know, this is what grooming is. I'm so sickened just talking about this and everything. But the girl who's pointing her fingers at all of this worked at Mar-a-Lago. Right, she was working as, I think, someone would carry food around, like a waitress or something. I think she may have been 14, 15, 16. She was underage. And Epstein would frequent Mar-a-Lago. And Trump would also be in Jeffrey Epstein's circle. Trump has appeared on the flight logs for the Lolita Express, right? These flights from Jeffrey Epstein's private jet that would fly out to this island that he owns in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where you know it's been reported that it's effectively just been this weird high society sexual, you know, disgusting place where all sorts of hellish things have gone down, and so, you know, but not only Donald Trump. You're hearing a lot about Trump in the news, but Bill Clinton's name, Hillary Clinton's name are also popping up all over the place around this guy. And what's really likely here, you know, like, I'm not going to go out and say, oh, I'm not going to do any accusations here. It's very clear that Jeffrey Epstein is a blackmail agent. He is a person who, you know, has dirt on other high-profile people. That's how he's able to secure deals that gets him scot-free of issues that anyone else would be in jail for life for. Any normal person, right? Rules for thee and such. And he's got a lot of dirt on potentially some incredibly powerful people. So this time around, it's been unveiled, right, that this sweetheart deal took place. There's a whole bunch of scrutiny. There's a whole bunch of attention being put on Acosta and his role in that. Why in the world would he go through and do that? Really disgusting things. I hope the book is thrown at this guy. I hope that justice is served, unlike 10 years ago, the last time we went through this charade and fiasco. But more importantly, it seems clear that justice is a slow grinding wheel, and we've always known that. We've always known that things don't move as fast and as efficiently as we'd like in an ideal world. That's the price for democracy. That's the price for freedom. You know, it's the price for staying free of totalitarianism, and you know, the path to hell is paved with good intentions and everything like that. But at the same time, how has this happened? And I keep thinking about it, and one of the just the resounding notions in my head is that these girls were preyed on because of their financial insecurity, because of their financial instability. And I am completely in favor of Andrew Yang's freedom dividend being available to people under the age of 18. I hope that we could expedite that kind of legislation post-election, or even up to the point if more progressives could say, hey, let's make sure that we beeline this into there. It makes complete sense. You know, I mean, but at the very least, you would hope that these girls, or at least much more of them, would now be in more secure families. Hopefully, 2-parent households, which now have $2,000 a month. Maybe they've got a brother who's over the age of 18. The family as a whole is a little bit more financially stable, and then at that point, after that, you know, generations from now, once financial insecurity is really a thing of the past, then there's no longer this leverage to use, to lure, to predate on these people, these children, these innocent kids who are labeled as prostitutes. They weren't prostitutes. There's no such thing as child prostitutes. They were children. It's so disgusting. It is so disgusting. Logician says, I say if they can vote at 16 and we have the funds, then they should get the freedom dividend too. Yeah, I love talking about Alaska's basic income, the Alaska Permanent Fund. They give it to children as well. They give it to everyone. There's no strings attached, and age is also not a string too. There's definitely enough money to provide it to everyone. In fact, I mean, when we're talking about abundance, it's an issue because we never understand how much we really do have. We have enough for a UBI plus, but for the sake of efficiency and for the sake of dealing with deficits and everything like that, you know, we can have a conversation about that as well. It's no question to me that if a kid wants to vote at 16, youth don't vote at all right now. If they have the inclination to vote, I imagine that they're thinking more critically than the average adult. I say, hell, go for it. And if they have the right to vote, then I think they should have the right for the freedom dividend. And the freedom dividend increases political activism. So it's just a win-win all around. So yeah, it may seem a little idealistic from me talking about this issue, and I know I've brushed past so much of the information of everything as a whole just to kind of zone in here on, really, this is just my thoughts about it all. This is how I view this disgusting thing that's happened. A lot of people rightfully will say, you know, the real root of the issue is corruption, it's blackmailing, it's this type of high society nonsense that's totally, it totally does exist. They're the problem. And I like to say that the reason that these people have so much power is because I believe it boils down to the leverage that poverty is used. It's a wedge to just focus attention on the ruling class, on the elites, on the wealthy. Poverty is used to keep us looking at them like we look at our cell phones. We're so hopelessly addicted to it. And it's really almost like a break for the finish line. How I view about a universal basic income is like, if we can just hop over that line real quick, if we can somehow hack our way in to dealing with financial insecurity, to dealing with poverty, and get these self-sufficient systems of small communities that are able to pool universal basic income together, then you can start to slowly over time just get your attention off of these systems, and we can be sure that they're going to use their massive amounts of wealth and power to try and stop that from happening. But like I said, everything's going to get real wacky really quickly. Technology is this huge just flash bomb that's going off that is going to blind everything. I'm less worried about what they're going to do after the fact. I'm more interested in how can we just stop this collectively, because man, it really sends me down. I need to spend some time out in some green. It sounds like you can tell it's really kind of gotten me down. I've been working on other stuff outside of the stream today, and I'm just a little like, I don't know what's going on. I said this on Tuesday, I said this on Monday, I said like, hey, it's just like weird. I'm out of it. I don't know what's going on. I might have to like take just a small break just to kind of collect myself. I'm going to work on a video. I've been thinking about this. I'm just going to brush it past you guys, see if there's any interesting conversations to be had here. I'm sorry to hard break away from this really serious conversation here, but I think that's necessary. We're going to sweep that under the rug, so to say. More will be uncovered in the weeks to come. That's the quick update. Now that you know, in case you weren't too sure so far. On the subject about millennials, about, you know, harder times and everything, one of the things that Andrew Yang has brought up is that we've seen this mass exodus of men, of guys leaving the workforce, and they're unemployed and they're spending a lot of time playing video games. That's how they cope with unemployment. That's how they cope with not being fulfilled. It's interesting that we don't necessarily see this amongst women. Women are able to deal with unemployment much easier than men. They're able to find like more diverse hobbies. They're able to find more diverse social groups, and it's great. I'm very happy for them. But men very quickly get into self-isolated activities, into antisocial types of characteristics, and they can really start to spiral if you don't keep that in check. Now, I don't think it's that bad. Okay, listen, the numbers are there. I'm biased. Okay, 1, I'm an introvert. 2, I'm a huge video game nerd. I love video games. I know I talk about that all the time. I literally learned how to read playing them. And 3, I really do attribute a lot of my character, a lot of my personality, a lot of the way that I speak, a lot of the way that I take in information to my history with gaming. And listen, I played World of Warcraft for years and years and years, and I cornered the auction house market. I learned about like basic economics, supply and demand, undercutting the competition, how to advertise myself. I was known as the potion master in my server, as well as like one of the best healers that you could ask for. So listen, I loved every single moment about that, and I somehow managed to also get a girlfriend at the same time. I know, like, you don't expect that to happen, but it did. But really, I miss these days. People call it chasing about when he brings up this issue of men quickly just losing themselves, because what all of those things that I just spoke about were ways in which I was expressing myself, ways in which I was basically doing work, hours and hours, and much of work right now is on the computer anyways, right? But you're just filing out Excel sheets or answering phone calls and taking bills from angry people and and tech issues, right? But in this case, I was dealing with numbers. I was dealing with pseudo activity. I had to go out, gather some type of resource, bring it back, find some way to market it, right? And in many ways, I was simulating types of work. I was building up my own empire, right? I was Heisenberg with what is it? What did they call it? Oh, come on. I've only watched Breaking Bad like 50 times. But, right, I was really fulfilling myself in some ways. And I think there's something to be said about, like, playing maybe Call of Duty and just 50,000 times doing the same match over and over, not really trying to make yourself any better, just kind of feeding your brain with rote activity. Yeah, that's not helpful at all. I think that there are some incredibly enriching things that gaming in general can offer. I don't necessarily think that it's a terrible thing for people to spend time with gaming. If they're using it as some coping mechanism, then we're into some troublesome territory. Now, the reason that I link this into Yang and UBI, though, is that I'm working on this theory, and I'm going to give a pitch to it right here, and then I think afterwards I'm going to maybe do like a post-edited video. I don't know, there's such a stigma attached to gaming. Like, I feel stupid talking about this, but it's something that's important. It's something that I really do think is important, because, again, so many men are having more and more of their life spent playing video games. So we need to have a discussion about it in some way. I think part of the appeal in gaming is that it actually has a universal basic income basically put into it, right? So, like, this is the thing. It's so satisfying because you will never get into some sort of spiral of poverty, any poverty trap. Like your game over screen is the same as everyone else's game over screen. And you're rewarded based on how hard you work. It is a meritocracy. Other people can see how hard you work based on, I don't know if it's an RPG, whatever type of gear you're wearing. So you're able to compare yourself with other people, but you're never at risk of total failure if you screw up. You can always just go back in again. Like it's basically, yeah, there are fail states, and yeah, you don't want to hit them. You want to continue to do better than them. But if we're thinking about a universal basic income and how it would play out in the real world, I say let's look no farther than gaming, in the ways in which people try and best themselves and really invest this time into a system that has an income floor. The floor is never going to make you pull your hair out unless you really just have some psychological issues. It's only a game. Why you have to be mad? So I really like that idea as a I don't know, like as an allegory, as some type of palate cleanser, or what's the term that I'm looking here? Like, you know, a starter into what a universal basic income is. But again, because of the stigma, maybe that's not a helpful angle to approach with at all. I hate it because it's so, you know, the lines are increasingly blurred too with mobile gaming. Now, you know, your 50-year-old mom's playing Sugar Crush or Candy Crush or whatever. And so, like, you know, they don't like to think of themselves as gamers unless they're trying to be weirdly ironic. But with virtual reality, with augmented reality, the lines will continue to be more and more blurred. And we're going to have to approach that conversation and meaning and fulfillment in the digital world, in the artificial world, in the augmented world as we continue on. I'm fascinated in this concept. So that's just kind of the primer. I thought I would throw it out there, see how it feels, me talking about it. I don't know. We'll see about it for sure. McKinney says, it seems that way, but a lot of scammers such as MLMs actually target unemployed women and prey on their insecurities, like making them seem like they're not good mothers/wives for not working. I just watched Betting on Zero the other day, and it actually details this really well. It's so interesting, and I'm very fascinated at the transition from housewives to being just as part of the workforce as men, because it really was that extreme of transition. And what that means is, listen, I mean, I'm not trying to be this type of reactionary person who would say, like it was better that way or anything like that. But no, we do have to go back and say what may have happened. All right, one, it's terrible that your life is completely kind of controlled over the fact of you being under someone else's financial control, right? That's terrible. But at the same time, is it possible that, well, you're going to empathize with the financial issues of that other individual as well, but was there anything different, right? That, there's nothing different for real, though. But they were also introduced into the same issues overall. I think largely employment took advantage of the fact that they now have twice as many workers. We're going to pay everyone less as well. That had something to do with the overall impact that automation is also having as well. And now there's not as much protection in general. And it's no longer... You know, there's just as much predation, and I can definitely see that happening, especially with MLMs, multi-layered marketing tools. And I think I brought this up in another episode, was we all are so saddened as well as frustrated and annoyed whenever one of these old friends that we used to see in high school are hitting us up on Facebook like, hey, you want to buy some essential oils? I've been doing this and it's changed my life completely, right? And no one wants to live that kind of a lifestyle. When you're young and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think of yourself 20 years older, you're never thinking that you're going to wind up as someone peddling snake oil, like a desperate maniac. That's not what you're going to do. That's not fun. That's not fulfilling. You could brainwash yourself into thinking that it is for a little bit, but what would a universal basic income do for that entire paradigm, right? There are systems in place that are predicated on the idea that you have to do something. You have to do something. And if you don't, it's going to suck. It's going to suck really bad. Those systems, I am so interested in seeing them fail. The loan shark industry, I guess, payday loan industry, that's more accurate. MLMs, so there's so much that I think could be positively shifted. And I remember someone saying, when I was talking about the fact that I think it's ridiculous that a lot of our means-tested welfare is predicated on the idea that you have to make sure that this person isn't smoking some cannabis every week or so, make sure that they're not, they're fitting these goals and everything. I said, we're spending so much money on that person to go check on these people. Wouldn't it be better if we didn't have to do that and they just got the money instead? And one person that I said that to said, yeah, but then what's that person gonna do? And I said, they're gonna get the UBI too. They're gonna get the UBI too, and they're not gonna be a parasite. I think those people are the parasites, okay? And they're employed. I think you can be a parasite and be employed. And the parasite's the person who's having to go around and check to see if you smoked a joint or not. That being said, I think there's definitely a place for social workers. And don't get me wrong, okay, I was being a little exaggerated there. There's a lot of good that can come from helping people out. Let's not get rid of all of that. But for sure, I think that there's something to be said about BS jobs and jobs that have just no meaning whatsoever. Or at worst, destroy meaning, destroy value. And we could probably get away from that. Logician says, I haven't played WoW for a while now. I remembered that it didn't get fun until a friend of mine gave me 1,000 gold. I used that 1,000 gold and made a ton more gold. Sounds like the freedom dividend. You gotta have money to make money. Yeah, and that was really cool too. They've broken the economy now. The game is nothing like it was before. Honestly, I'm really excited for Classic WoW. If it comes out, I might just, I don't know. It might be the nail on the coffin for me, the last nail. Hopefully, maybe I could be a streamer and do, like, if this is before the freedom dividend, we'd never get the freedom dividend. Maybe I can do it. If not, I'll be on the streets. Look at me, I'm scratching my neck because I can feel that coming right back. But yeah, like I remember, the copper, the silver, the gold, and I remember like when 10 gold was something to be like, wow, you had to work so hard to get that. And then someone would be like, hey man, I'll give you, like this amount of gold. And you're like, hell yeah, I'll do that. It was so weird. I was definitely emulating this entire lifestyle that we're in, but there was no threat of starvation. There was no threat of severe, like, pulling my hair out at the seams, literally, if there was a failure involved. Yeah, universal basic income is baked into gaming. I really do believe that as a fact. And so I think the next part that I'm going to put on top of that is when a universal basic income is baked into life, then all of that type of activity that we see people spend so much time in gaming, maybe we'll see a lot of that return. Maybe we'll see a lot of that return and say, hey, okay, I've got this 1,000 gold. What am I going to do to make a little bit more with it? I can do that now. I'm not going to try and drown out my sorrows by playing a 60th match of team deathmatch in shooting range, No, and no hits to you if you do that. It's a great way to decompress at the end of the day. It's much better than drinking. It's much better than taking drugs. I think gaming as an addiction is so much better than everything else. I think it's at least using your brain in some way. But yeah, like, that's the theory. I'm going to name the theory something. It's going to be published in a scientific journal, and I'll make millions. It's only a matter of time. Speaking of making millions, guys, thank you so much. We did somehow make it to a full episode tonight. We're about 8 minutes short or so. I may be taking a small break. I don't know. Check out my Twitter at Dividend Report. I may be here tomorrow. I may not. I'm going to be working more on those videos. I'm also going to be making those phone calls, and I highly encourage you to as well. We have to make these phone calls. We have to get more people involved in the Yang Gang. Let them know. Right now, it's just the name game. They just have to hear Yang's name. You don't need to persuade them. You don't need to do anything out of the ordinary. You just got to pick up the phone, and you got to drop Yang's name. And then you get $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. It's going to be great. It's going to be so great. Yeah, so for sure, make sure you're subscribed to the Dividend Report. Thank you. Special thank you again to my patrons as well. If you have it within you to buy me a coffee every month, you can check out my patron link at the bottom of this show. But also, if you're just subscribed and sharing this with other members of the Yang Gang, you're doing the Lord's work. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining in with Securing the Bag and helping me secure the bag as well. I am signing off for the night. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Take it easy.